it's Nicole for Lawnfawn, and today I am sharing a mermaid's underwater scene trifold card. Trifold cards are one of my favorite things here lately, and that's because you can extend your scene either horizontally or vertically, like I'm going to share today, to really have this big oversized scene. And with all of the great coordinating stamps from Lawnfawn that work with each other, new stamps working with older ones, it's so much fun to do. What I'm going to do to create my card base is I'm taking an oversized ruler. This is actually a quilting ruler and a rotary cutter, and I'm cutting some watercolor cardstock. This is 9.5 by 12 inch watercolor cardstock, and it's going to give me my closest size to an A2 card base, and then I'm scoring it 4 inches from each side. So it's 5.5 inches wide. That's what I cut there, but instead of being 4.25, it's only going to be 4 inches per panel, if that makes sense. It's only going to be 1/4 of an inch smaller than a standard A2 size card base. After I have folded it, I'm going to just take a Teflon bone folder and make sure it's nice and flat. Then I'm going to start working on building the background. Because this is 3 panels and it will have die cuts images all over it, that's already going to be quite a bit of material put in an envelope, I don't want to add a ton of bulk with additional layers. 1 or 2 is okay, but for me, I personally like to try to build my background as flat as possible. And to do this, I'm applying some distress inks to this watercolor cardstock. I've got Mermaid Lagoon, Salty Ocean, Peacock Feathers, and Blueprint Sketch. And instead of applying them straight across in layers and blending together, I'm creating these large circles of color. It looks really messy to start with, but once I get more color added and you see how water reacts with this and then the layering with the stencil, it really builds this underwater ocean scene perfectly. I'm going to use that scrap of paper that I trimmed off to keep my fingers out of the ink. And I'm just mixing and matching these different shades of blue all over the surface. I want to really get a great coverage here so that there isn't any white space at all. This is going to be the underwater portion of the scene. It's going to be the perfect backdrop for all of the fun mermaids and fish and sea creatures that I'm going to add to it. So I just need to add color here to a couple more places on my background and blend the color in all over the surface. I'm going to go back with a couple, I think this is maybe the Blueprint Sketch, and I'm just going to fill in, make sure there's color everywhere. Then I will take water from a distress sprayer and spritz it all over the surface. And the water is going to react with the distress ink, wicking away the water, creating some light areas all over. For a little bit of a different look, the more oxidized look, you could use the Distress Oxide inks instead. But this is going to give that really great kind of underwater type of look. You could also maybe even make this an outer space look, I think, with the addition of black soot. This could be an outer space scene very easily. Next, I'm taking a wave stencil, and through this, I'm going to apply my distress inks. And I'm going to try to use the same colors over those areas. So again, I'm not really going in straight lines so much. I guess I did with the Salty Ocean there. But instead, I'm just going to apply the color to the area where that's the same color underneath. So it's tone on tone. And this is really subtle. I'm pouncing it on. I'm not really rubbing it over the stencil in a circular motion. It's more of a pouncing effect. There you can kind of see what it looks like. I want it really to just blend in to the background and create that other layer to really make this look like an ocean scene. Again, a little bit of Post-it tape to help hold that stencil in place, and I'm going to pounce my color over those areas. And because this is 12 inches long, you're going to have to move it along each section if your scene is going across all 3 panels, the same scene. I'll have to move it one last time just to fill in that last little area. So again, I'm going to pop this up. You kind of see it's really starting to take shape. And just pounce on that last little bit. I probably wouldn't have even had to have done this last little bit because I am going to add a sandy border or a bottom to my ocean. Now I laid out all of the stamps that I'm planning on using. This is going to give me a much better idea of spacing. And I even took a picture of this with my smartphone before I pick them up and stamp. That way I kind of have an idea, so in case I forget or I have to leave and come back to the project, I know kind of what I was thinking. I've die cut a border for the bottom of my scene using a simple stitched hillside border just from a scrap of that watercolor cardstock, and I'm using antique linen and gathered twigs distress ink to add that sandy border to this. I won't be spritzing this with water this time. Instead, I'll let this completely air dry. You could hit it with a heat tool if you want it to dry a little faster, because I did pick this up and I got finger marks in it because the ink was still wet. So I did have to go back over it with a little antique linen. Here's where I really get my fingers in it, because I went ahead and stamped one of my greetings. And I am going to stamp the See You Soon from the Mermaid for You stamp set right here along the top edge. Not only does this serve as the bottom of my scene, but this is also where you can handwrite a message. So there's a little greeting inside, almost like if you opened up a standard card and had a greeting stamped inside. And then you can handwrite, you know, like for example, you know, hope to see you soon, love Nicole, or something like that. Or we had such a great time, hope to see you soon, whatever you want to say. It's just a great place to be able to handwrite a little message to the recipient. Now, the seaweed and coral from the Mermaid for You stamp set, these are solid images. This is going to save a little bit of coloring time. These images I'm stamping with fresh or jalapeno, celery stick, I believe, yes. The carrot and lobster lawnfawn inks. And those are going to go along the bottom panel of my card. Then I have stamped images from tons of lawnfawn stamp sets. So I've got Mermaid for You. Those are the narwhal, the mermaids, fish, accessories. From Fantastic Friends, I've got lots of fish. From the Duh-nuh stamp set, I've got my shark and a fish. And I guess those are the three main ones. There are other stamp sets that you could combine with this if you wanted to, which I think is so fun. I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but one of my favorite things about lawnfawn is how they consistently come out with brand new fantastic designs, but how they'll work back with the older stuff. So if you've made the investment and have all of these fantastic stamp sets, many times you can combine them to create truly unique cards, which I think is just so fun. I am listing the colors I'm using along the bottom edge of the screen. This is a very long video, so I have sped up the coloring quite a bit. I left it in here because I know a lot of you like to kind of see the coloring, watch the whole process from start to finish. Lots of bright colors here, lots of Copic markers used. You could use whatever you like to color with, whether that's colored pencils, other types of alcohol ink markers, other types of markers, watercolors. So many great ways to color this. I went with very bright colors because of the blue background. And I purposely went with brighter blue colors. This is a very whimsical, fun, bright ocean scene, and I definitely wanted the colors to reflect that. I started with my skin tones for all of the mermaids. Those are about the first several colors listed here just a little bit ago. Then I kind of worked my way through some fish, the mermaid tail and the outfit, went back and worked on some hair. I kind of skip around a lot, especially when I'm coloring a lot of images like this. I always have the best intentions to try to color everything like that is grays that I'm coloring right now. but invariably I find myself forgetting something and having to go back and forth anyway. So I kind of just let the coloring go where it takes me. I felt like coloring my little crab here, so I went ahead and did that. It's just whatever you are, lobster, whatever you feel the best coloring, I say just go for it. In fact, I stand to work and I had to pull up a stool because this was a lot of coloring at the end of the day. And so I just sat and colored and colored. It's very relaxing. Some oranges here. Lots of dot detail over the coloring once the blending's done. This gives some texture to the design. This is another tip where I was talking earlier about having a fairly flat background to help reduce the bulk of the card, so not a lot of the scene's not built with die cuts, nor is the embellishment on the images. By adding some dot detail and pin detail, I'll go back with a white pen and a sparkle pen later. Those are all flat things that you can do that add a lot to the image but don't add that additional bulk. Finish my little lobster shell. It took me a while to figure out what color of top I wanted for the remaining two little mermaid girls. I kept all of their mermaid tails consistent. I kind of originally thought maybe it'd be fun to do different colors, and then I decided so many things to color, I didn't want to try to think about that. Multiple images of some of the things, like these little schools of fish. This also helps fill in space in a large scene like this. Another idea for trifold cards that I think would be fun is to stamp all the outlines, die cut them, put them in place, and then especially if you're sending this to a child, let them color in the remaining images. So maybe the top panel is the greeting card portion of it, and when they open it up, it's like a color book type of thing for the recipient. I think that would be super fun as well. These are great images for kids to color and have fun with. My narwhal and shark share a lot of the same colors. I tried to keep the narwhal slightly lighter than the shark. They really look almost the same color, so oh well. I did color this shark fin, but ended up not using it. It really needs to sit up above the water, and everything in this card is underwater. So I realized, whoops, I don't really need that for this card. I just tucked it back into the stamp pocket. I can save that and use it for another project at another time. Finish my last girl's hair. Little pink cheek for the narwhal. It was a little harsh, so I went back over it with a gray pen to mute it a little bit. Now, I didn't really like the colors for her little crown on her head, and I had already colored them in. So I took a colorless blender and just kind of tapped it to those little beads, and it kind of wicks the color away so I can go back over them with a different color. The narwhal horn I just did in some purples, a little purple for her crown, and then I taped all of the dies from the Mermaid for You, Fantastic Friends, and Duh-nuh over the images and die cut them. I got almost everything die cut with one pass of the machine, except for anything that was repeating, which is fantastic. That cuts down the time you have to crank through your Big Shot or send it through your Big Shot or other die cutting machine. Now, all three of the stamp sets I just mentioned, Mermaid for You, Fantastic Friends, and Duh-nuh, have bubbles in them. And this is going to be another thing that really completes the scene. So I am stamping these little bubbles coming up from the fish, the mermaids, all over. All three panels are going to feature these little bubbles. There's the groups of 3 bubbles from all 3 stamp sets, and then individual bubbles, I think, in all 3 stamp sets as well. So you can really create a nice little different combinations of these all over the background. Once I have these filled in, I am going to put a little glossy accents over all of them to make them nice, glassy, glossy bubbles. Add just a few more here. Make sure that all three of the panels are really cohesive and go together really well. So here's my glossy accents. What makes it easy to apply this, I think, is having a fine tip applicator. There are several available. This is the Scrap Perfect one. I absolutely love it. It's never clogged for me, which is a big deal. I've tried several and had clogging issues. This one's never clogged. I've even changed it from my old bottle to my new bottle. I use glossy accents a lot, so it's really nice to not have to buy a new fine tip applicator every single time. I'm going to start building the scene with the border along the bottom. The only thing I've not really done here is add my greeting at the top of the card. And that is going to be kind of the final thing. That's what you're going to see when you first take your card out of the envelope before you open it up or anything. So while the "See You Soon" is super cute, kind of think of that as the inside of the card. That's what you're going to see when you open it up. So you've got to have something nice when the recipient first takes it out of the envelope that really grabs the attention. And I knew I wanted to use the greeting "Miss You Already" because I think that ties into "See You Soon" really well. And "Miss You Already" is actually from Plain and Simple, something that is not ocean themed related at all, but the greeting and the font matches the "You Soon" from the "See You Soon" greeting, which is one of the reasons I picked it. But it bothered me. It's one of the reasons I left it to the end is while I liked it, it's really teeny tiny, and I considered putting it on a banner. I thought I wanted to probably emboss it with white up above along the top edge of the card, but I just really wasn't dead set on that greeting the way it was. I knew that's the feeling and emotion I wanted to use, but I needed something else. And I don't know why I didn't notice it, but from the Fantastic Friends, which I'm using tons of fish from that stamp set, is the "You're Fantastic" greeting, which, again, another fun play on words. Lawnfawn is so great about that. It just goes with their fun images so well. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking the "You're Fantastic" scripty greeting and stamping that along the top edge of my card and embossing the "Miss You Already" greeting right under it. Right now, all I'm doing is adhering all of my images. About this point, I'm going to tell you that I realized I wish I would have used the Xyron sticker maker and just run these babies right on through, because I think every single image I'm using would have fit the little narrow sticker maker, and they would have been all sticky on the back, and it probably would have made this much easier. So there's a little tip. If you're going to do something with tons of stickers like this, I think that would make it easy. Another idea along the lines of sending this to a child and letting them color them, you could also put them on sticker paper, and the Xyron sticker maker, tuck them inside, and the recipient not only could color them, but then stick them on the scene wherever they wanted to. I think that would be really fun too. So I'm just going to finish up adding a few more images, and then I can stamp my greeting along the top edge of the card. So right underneath the "You're Fantastic," this was stamped with the Lawnfawn Blue Jay ink, I am stamping "Miss You Already." And unfortunately, my "You're Fantastic" was still maybe a little wet, so the embossing powder stuck to it. I took a fine tip paintbrush and just moved that embossing powder off and then embossed the image. Now it's simply time for some finishing details. I'm taking a black glaze pen and adding detail to the eyes. I've got a white pen. This is an opaque white pen. I'm adding detail to the sea creatures. I will use it on the mermaid tails as well. A little stardust glitter pen on the mermaid tails. Both the white and the stardust for those. Some little highlights on some of the fish instead of dots. dots on the orange fish. The seaweed along the bottom also will have a little white detail. Anywhere that you can add some nice little highlights. It's very quick and easy and a great way to add some interest to all these stamped images. Here's the Stardust glitter pin. I think it's really hard to tell in the video, but in real life it adds some nice sparkly detail to these little mythical creatures, which I really love. Here's that white. Gives the illusion of scales and things on the fish and the mermaid tails. Some glossy accents on her crown is going to finish that off. And here's a look at the finished card, what it looks like when you open the card out of the envelope and then when you fold it out. Thanks for joining me today for this tri-fold scene card featuring Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. Please be sure to check out the Lawn Fawn blog for more information. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.